All right, good morning, everyone. I am Mix or Mix Noble. For those of you that don't know, my pronouns are he, they, so I go by Mix. It's a gender non-specific term. So we're gonna get started today, and we're moving into day two of our playwriting unit. And today we're kind of getting to the basics of what makes up a story. Now, yesterday I know we had some like moans and grumbles of like, playwriting's hard. I'm not a playwright. Like that just seems out there. Like I don't do that. When will I use that? But you all saw after we did our instant playwriting activity how anyone can be a playwright. You all came up with your own open scenes and you performed them in front of the class, and everyone got to see how much of a playwright you already are. So that's what we're moving into today. A little outline of how today's going to go. We're going to do a little warm up, and then we're going to have a little plot talk. And then we're going to do some discussion, and we're going to do a Frozen activity with the movie Frozen. I hope we're all familiar with that. Do I have anyone that's not familiar with the movie Frozen? All right, we'll do a quick little rundown, and maybe your partner will also be able to give you a little rundown too. And after that, we're going to do a little review and have our little presentations of our activity. And just so we're all aware, this big idea that's fueling what we're doing in this unit is that your art is necessary and your story is worth telling. And by the end of this, like we reviewed yesterday for your project, you're going to be writing your own 10-minute play and presenting them to the English classes around the school. So I hope you all get excited about that. Today we're going to be, after the class is over, you'll be able to identify the elements of plot, and you'll be able to identify those by working with your group members to come up with a little short story of a little specific plot point in Frozen. And this is important because in your presentations for your English class presentations, you're going to be able to have to pull out the plot from your 10-minute plays to be able to talk about them with your English teachers and your fellow peers. Before we go on, can I get everyone just to stand up real fast for me? Let's just bring it up to the sky, stretch up on our tiptoes, reach as high as you can. That feels good on a Monday morning. We're gonna go to the right, down a little bit, feel that stretch. Then we're gonna bring it to the left. And we're gonna bring it up again. And we're gonna inhale. And we're gonna exhale. And then just shake it out. Shake it out. Get all the little critters out of the time. All right, cool. How are we feeling about sitting on the floor today? Ooh. Can we do it? All right, let's move the desk to the side of the room. Nope, you don't need anything but yourselves. All right, before you all pick a spot, I'm gonna put you on a specific spot, okay? James, can I have you sit right here for me? Can I have you sit right here for me, Jalen? Brittany, can you come up here just a little bit? Right here. You're gonna be the top portion. That's gonna be your spot. Oh, hell yeah. I need you right here. Kind of in line with Brittany here. And then we're kind of running out a little room, so if you two just want to kind of like stagger back down here. Beautiful. Can anyone tell me what this image is? Anyone have an idea of what this might be? Oh, you can face me. You don't have to face each other yet. Yeah.
I know it's like the plot
Yeah. That's exactly what it is. James, did you have something else that you wanted to say? All right, so yes, this is a plot diagram. You kind of touched on it here about how it incorporates these different parts throughout it. And generally what we're going to talk about with a plot diagram is it's a graphic representation of our story throughout our journey. You can see that. So it's going to talk about a story of events beginning on the left and working our way to the right. We go on this journey throughout the plot diagram that shows us and takes us through this individual part of the story. And our first little stop on our journey is the exposition. Does anyone have an idea of what the exposition is? I give like a simple, the beginning. Yeah, that's a really easy way to put it. So the exposition introduces our story setting, introduces the characters that we have, gives us the time of the world that we're in, and it gives us the background information that we need to know about this world that this story takes place within. and we know about the things that are happening leading up to what we're coming to. And in our plot diagram that you all are sitting in, we have James here in the exposition. So on our next little road, our next little journey, thank you for modeling that for me. Our next little plot point here is our inciting incident. Does anyone have an idea, a simple word or two about what the inciting incident is? Yeah, James. Exactly, the big uh-oh. The story, this is the event that takes us and launches us off into our journey into this world that we're exploring. Um, as you can see on the plot diagram, the story continues to go up because at this point, we're kind of just flatlining here about getting set up, and then that event happens and it skyrockets us into this journey that we're going on. And in our plot diagram, we have Jalen here as our inciting incident. And our next little stop on our journey is rising action. One word or two. Do we know, have any prior conceptions about what rising action is? Yeah, Hope. Yes, good. I like that the building that you talked about in that. This is what happens after the inciting incident. So something happens to our central group of characters, and it leads them on this journey, and we're seeing them go along this journey in this story. And in our plot diagram, Brittany, you are our rising action. And another stop on this journey, we have the climax. Does anyone want to give a stab at what this one is? Yeah, Olivia. I have almost that same exact word here, that turning point. Yes. So once we reach this point in the story, this is the heightened moment of emotion. The most is happening to our character. We don't know what's going to happen. Are they going to go on? Are they not going to go on? What is going to happen in this story? And like we said, we don't know what comes after. And that's why it's at the top of our plot diagram, because it's the most intense part of our story. And in ours, we have Hope. We're almost to the end of our journey up here, but our next stop is our falling action. Anyone, based off what we've already talked about with rising action, what do we think falling action is? Yeah, here.
When the story starts to not come to a close, but it starts to resolve itself a little bit.
Yeah, I like the word resolve that you're talking about there. We see what happens at that climax, and now we have to deal with the effects of that climax. So we see that like we got up to this really heightened point, and now we have to come off of that and see what comes of it. And in our little plot diagram, Olivia, you are our falling action. And our last stop on our specific journey is the resolution. Who hasn't gone that can just throw out what we think our resolution is? Yeah, Brittany. End of the story. Amazing. So this is our plot's end. Something that we need to remember is that our plot is just a specific point of time. This isn't someone's full story. This isn't in your own life. You have your own plot diagrams. And what we're looking at when we look at plays, when we see movies, when we read books, is we're looking at a specific moment in time. And that, yes, we went along this journey, but life still continues at the end. After our resolution, these characters still go on and live their lives. We see prequels of movies come out, we see what happens after that, and then we see another plot diagram come out of their lives. And so we're going to have a little team over here of our resolution. Yeah. Yes, so we fully reached our end now. And so real fast, we're just going to go through this one more time. We have our exposition at the beginning here with James. We've met James. We know who James is. We know he's our student in this class. We get into our inciting incident. Oh no, Jalen has came to town, and James has been threatened with the throne. He's a king. We learn that he's a king in the exposition, and she's going to fight him for the throne. We go up to the rising action. We see how James is dealing with this idea of Jalen coming in and taking this throne. We see them fight. We see the downfalls of James. We see, secrets that we didn't know come out that Jalen brought to the town. And then we get to the climax. Oh no, James prevails. Oh. We see Jalen and James fight. We've seen Harry Potter. We see the ending scene of them fighting. We don't know what's going to happen next. Oh no, James has prevailed. We didn't know what was going to happen. We get down to our falling action. A little calmer now. James is in the state of mind of, this is my kingdom. We're going to keep going. I'm going to get this. And then we finally get to our resolution. James takes his place back on the throne and restores order. All right, so you can drop those on the floor. You don't need to hold those up anymore. Marriage. Review or renewing of vows. Yeah. Yeah, you renewed your vow to the throne. There we go. All right, now let's talk a little bit about this. Why do we think that plot structure is important, specifically when we're talking about telling stories? Yeah, Olivia. Yeah, it gives us this sense of like our own mental organizer to be able to see and make sure that we hit all the points that are needed in our story. James. Yeah, so as we can see, like, let me go back real fast. We have, it almost kind of, does this kind of look like a heartbeat to anyone else? There's life in our stories. There's like, we breathe life into what we're doing. And this follows our life of the story and makes sure that we don't, because if we didn't have our inciting incident here, this would just keep going. But this makes it interesting and takes us on this journey of flying. We come back. And our main character is kind of the same, but a little different after what has happened to them. So it breathes that life into what we're doing. Let's move down to how does plot structure, do you think, help an audience that's watching a show? Yeah, cool. Yeah, exactly. When an audience comes to a theater, they want to forget for a minute. They don't want to have to think super hard. And yes, we have shows that do that, but they're there for entertainment. And that plot diagram gives them that sense of, I know what I'm expecting, I know what this is, and I know when I get to the climax of the show's going to be over soon after this happens. So it gives them a sense of certainty of what they're going to expect in the show. And then we kind of already touched on this. So the plot structure to a scene, it gives it that life that we talked about because we don't want to stay flatlined the whole time. We want to take ourselves on journeys and we want to take our reader on journeys because that makes it interesting for what we're doing. And like we talked about, plot diagrams are in your everyday life. We're going to do a think, pair, share for a second. Take a second and think about your day yesterday and look at where the plot structure lied within your day. What was the exposition? What was your climax, falling action, and your resolution? Think about your past week. Is there plot structure there? This month? Take like 20 seconds and think about this for a moment. Then I'm going to have you turn with the partners and talk about this for a second. It's like 20 more seconds. Just think about it for a second. Good thumbs up when you're ready. All right. Why don't you two pair up together and talk? You two talk, and then you three, why don't you go ahead and talk for a second? My plot structure happened this weekend because so basically I've been looking for and I moved all my work for homework and I took my PCs out of the climax. So I had to work on Saturday from 1 p.m. until 10 p.m. alone. Like I was the only server in the restaurant. But then I got a call.